I watched through the rain-streaked window as my mother's Mercedes pulled away from the bus stop, my sister's blonde hair visible in the passenger seat as they laughed about something. The graduation gown in my arms was soaked through, the supposedly waterproof garment bag having torn the moment I'd stepped out of the car. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Sorry, sweetie. Emergency at Chelsea's salon appointment. You understand?" I did understand. I understood perfectly, actually. Far better than they could ever imagine. Because this had all happened before. In my previous life, I'd stood at this exact bus stop, 17 years old and shivering, watching that same car disappear around the corner. I'd called them 63 times that day. I'd waited 4 hours in the rain before finally walking the 7 miles home, arriving to find them having a celebration dinner for Chelsea's acceptance to Yale. They'd forgotten it was my graduation day entirely. When I'd walked in, dripping and fevered, my father had actually been annoyed that I was interrupting. That version of me had forgiven them, had answered every call, every summons, every demand for the next decade, had worked 3 jobs to support myself through community college while they paid for Chelsea's Ivy League education, her apartment in Manhattan, her startup costs, for her Instagram influencer career, had given them my savings when Dad's business hit a rough patch, had donated my kidney to Mom when she got sick, only to watch her give the inheritance she'd promised me to Chelsea. "Because she needs it more, dear. You're so self-sufficient." I died at 32, alone in a studio apartment, having just been laid off. No savings, no family. They'd all been too busy at Chelsea's destination wedding in Bali to visit me in the hospital. The last thing I'd heard before my heart stopped was a nurse saying, "No emergency contacts answered." Then I'd woken up the morning of my 10th birthday, tears streaming down my face, memories of 22 years I hadn't lived yet burning in my mind. This time would be different. The rain was letting up now, and I carefully folded the ruined graduation gown and tucked it into my waterproof backpack, the one I'd bought with my own money from my tutoring job. I pulled out my phone and took a series of photos. The empty bus stop, the timestamp showing 2:47 p.m., the torn garment bag, my soaked shoes. Then I blocked all their numbers. My phone immediately started buzzing with calls from Mom, Dad, and Chelsea. I declined each one, watching the missed call notifications stack up with a calm I'd never felt in my previous life. After the 17th call, I turned my phone off entirely. The number 47 bus pulled up and I climbed aboard, scanning my student pass. The driver, an older woman named Marie, I remembered her. She'd been kind to me in my previous life during my late-night community college commutes, gave me a sympathetic look. "Rough day, honey." "The beginning of a much better one, actually," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. People often asked me in my previous life why I let my family treat me the way they did. The question always seemed to imply it was somehow my fault, my weakness. But they didn't understand what it was like to be gaslit from birth, to have your reality constantly rewritten by the people who were supposed to love you most. My parents, Richard and Caroline Ashford, had me when they were young. Dad was 23, Mom was 21. I was unplanned, unwanted, and endlessly reminded of both facts in subtle ways. "We had to delay our lives for you," Mom would sigh. "We could have traveled more if we'd waited," Dad would mention casually. Then, when I was 7, they had Chelsea, planned, wanted, celebrated, the golden child. I remembered it all so clearly now, every slight, every forgotten birthday, every time they chose her over me. The time I won the regional science fair and they missed the ceremony because Chelsea had a dance recital. The time I got accepted to the magnet high school and Dad said we couldn't afford the commute. But 6 months later, they bought Chelsea a car for her 14th birthday, just because. In my previous life, I'd internalized it all, believed I was somehow defective, unlovable, difficult. I'd tried so hard to win their affection, morphing myself into whatever they seemed to want. Quiet when they wanted peace, helpful when they needed things. Invisible when Chelsea needed the spotlight. It never worked. It never would have worked. But this time, armed with memories of a future that would never happen, I'd spent the last 7 years preparing. I'd documented everything, every broken promise, every cruel comment, every instance of blatant favoritism. I'd kept my grades perfect while working part-time jobs, saving every penny in an account they knew nothing about. I'd researched emancipation laws, scholarship opportunities, and legal precedents for parental neglect. Most importantly, I'd learned to stop seeking their approval. That was the real superpower my rebirth had given me. The knowledge that their love wasn't something I could earn because it was never available in the first place. The knowledge that I didn't just survive without them, I thrived. The day they left me at the bus stop was June 15th, my high school graduation. In my previous timeline, it had been the day that set the pattern for the next 15 years. This time, it was the day I set myself free. I'd known it was coming. That morning, Mom had been fussing over Chelsea's outfit for the graduation ceremony. Yes, my ceremony. But somehow, it was about Chelsea's appearance. Dad had been on a work call, distracted. I'd asked 3 times what time we were leaving. "Noon, sweetie," Mom had said absently, not looking up from Chelsea's hair. I'd been ready at 11:30, cap and gown pressed, my valedictorian speech memorized. At 11:45, I'd come downstairs to find them gone. A note on the counter. Had to take Chelsea to emergency hair appointment. Her extensions were tangling. Meet us there. No address, no follow-up text. My calls went to voicemail. In my previous life, I'd panicked. This time, I'd walked calmly to the bus stop, photographing the note first, and waited. I knew they'd drive by on their way. Mom's salon was on this route. I knew they'd see me standing there in my graduation gown, and I knew, with the certainty of lived experience, that they wouldn't stop. Sure enough, at 12:17, the Mercedes had slowed as it approached. Through the tinted window, I'd seen Mom's face register recognition, then dismissal. She'd said something to Chelsea, and they'd both laughed. The car had sped up. That's when it had started raining. In my previous life, I'd felt like the universe itself was punishing me. This time, I'd tilted my face up to the sky and smiled, letting the water wash away the last 7 years of pretending I still wanted to be part of this family. The ceremony was beautiful. I'd taken the bus to school, changed in the bathroom into the backup outfit I'd hidden in my locker, and delivered my valedictorian speech to a crowd that included my favorite teachers, my boss from the tutoring center, and my friend Marcus's parents, who'd basically adopted me over the past year. My family showed up 20 minutes late, making a commotion as they found their seats. I watched Mom scan the stage, confusion crossing her face when she didn't see me in the graduate lineup. I was backstage, waiting for my speech, when Principal Hayes announced me, our valedictorian graduating with a perfect 4.0 GPA and a full scholarship to MIT, Elena Ashford. I walked out to thunderous applause. I didn't look at my family. I looked at Marie from the bus, who'd asked for a ticket and was sitting in the front row, beaming. I looked at Mr. Chen, my physics teacher, who'd written me the recommendation letter that had sealed my MIT acceptance. I looked at the future I was walking toward, not the past I was leaving behind. My speech wasn't the one I'd originally written. That one had been full of platitudes about family and support. This one was about resilience, about being your own champion, about the family you choose versus the family you're born into. I quoted Maya Angelou. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted 3 full minutes. I saw Mom trying to catch my eye, waving, her face bright with vicarious pride. I saw Dad recording on his phone, probably planning to post about his brilliant daughter on LinkedIn. I saw Chelsea looking bored and scrolling through Instagram. I walked off the stage and right out the side exit, where Marcus's mom was waiting with her car. "Ready?" she asked. "So ready," I said. We drove straight to the apartment I'd secretly rented 3 months ago, paid for with my savings and my tutoring income. Mrs. Martinez helped me carry up the boxes I'd been storing in their garage, everything I actually cared about from my childhood home, which fit in exactly 7 boxes. Everything else could burn for all I cared. My phone, which I'd turned back on to record my speech, had 47 missed calls and over 100 texts. I read through them with detached fascination. "Mom, where are you?" "Mom, Elena, this isn't funny." "Mom, we need to take family photos." "Chelsea, Mom is freaking out, lol." "Dad, young lady, you need to answer your phone immediately." "Mom, please call us. We're worried." "Dad, this is extremely disrespectful. We drove all this way." "Chelsea, You're being so dramatic it's embarrassing. And then, around text 60, the tone changed. Mom, okay, I know you're upset about this morning. Let's talk. Dad, we can explain about the bus stop. It wasn't intentional. Mom, we're sorry, okay? Please come home. Mom, Elena, you're scaring us. Where are you? I turned the phone off again and went to bed in my new apartment, in my new life, surrounded by silence and possibility. They found my apartment on day 3. I don't know how. Probably they'd tracked my phone or bribed someone at the school for my records. I watched through the peephole as Mom pounded on the door, mascara running, Dad looking stern beside her. Elena Marie Ashford, open this door right now. I'd had the locks changed the day I moved in, and the lease was in my name only. They couldn't legally enter. I stood there, silent, watching them grow increasingly frantic. We know you're in there, Dad said. This has gone on long enough. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. What point? I wanted to laugh. They still didn't get it. They thought this was a tantrum, a phase, a negotiation tactic. We're your parents, Mom sobbed. You can't just cut us off. Actually, I could. I was 18. I had my own housing, my own income, my own bank account they'd never known about. I had my acceptance to MIT, my scholarship, my future planned down to the last detail. I had, in fact, spent 7 years preparing for exactly this moment. After an hour, building security asked them to leave. They went, but not before Dad slipped a note under my door. We raised you better than this. You're being selfish and ungrateful. Your mother is devastated. Call us and apologize, and maybe we can move past this. Apologize. For what? For existing? For finally refusing to accept their scraps of attention? I burned the note in my kitchen sink. The messages continued for weeks. They cycled through every manipulation tactic in the book: anger, guilt, bargaining, false apologies that blamed me for misunderstanding them. Chelsea, predictably, was the worst. I can't believe her doing this to Mom, she texted. She's literally crying every day. You always make everything about you, she wrote another time. You're so selfish, we're family. I wanted to reply, wanted to send her the carefully curated folder of evidence I'd built. Screenshots of every forgotten birthday, photos of every milestone they'd missed, recordings of the cruel comments they thought I didn't hear. The time I'd had pneumonia and Mom had told me to stop being dramatic because it was Chelsea's sweet 16 party weekend. The time I'd won a national writing competition and Dad had said, "That's nice." Then spent dinner talking about Chelsea's B+ in English. But I didn't. Because that would have been engaging, and engagement was what they wanted. They didn't want to change or apologize or acknowledge their behavior. They wanted me to come back so everything could return to normal. Me working myself to death for scraps of validation. Them taking everything I had to give and offering nothing in return. Instead, I finished packing for MIT. My apartment lease was up in August, perfectly timed. Mrs. Martinez was driving me to Boston in her minivan, making it a mother-daughter road trip with Marcus, who was heading to Boston University. The night before I left, my phone rang. Not my cell, the apartment landline I'd gotten for emergencies. I stared at it, wondering how they'd gotten the number. Elena? Mom's voice cracked through the speaker when I picked up, unable to resist my curiosity. Please, just talk to us. We're your family. No, I said quietly. You're the people who share my DNA. Family shows up. Family remembers your graduation. Family doesn't leave you in the rain. That was a mistake. We've apologized. You've said the words, "I'm sorry," but you've never once actually apologized. You've never acknowledged what you did. Every single message has been about how I'm hurting you, how I'm being dramatic, how I'm tearing the family apart. Not once have you said, "We failed you. We were terrible parents. We chose your sister over you repeatedly, and that was wrong." Silence. That's what I thought, I said. Goodbye, Caroline. I hung up before she could respond. It was the first time I'd ever called her by her first name. It felt like shedding a skin. MIT was everything I'd dreamed of and more. I threw myself into my studies, into research opportunities, into building a life that was entirely mine. I made friends who actually cared about me, who remembered my birthday, who showed up when I needed them. I dated a girl named Sophia my sophomore year who, when I told her about my family, just held me and said, "You deserve so much better." Not they probably didn't mean it, or I'm sure they love you in their own way, or any of the other dismissive platitudes people had offered in my previous life. Just simple validation that I deserved better. My junior year, I got an internship at a major tech company that paid more than my father made. I got it through my own merit, my own hard work, my own networking. No family connections, no leg up, nothing but my brain and my determination. The calls never fully stopped, but they slowed to a trickle. A birthday call each year that went to voicemail. A Christmas card with a check for $50 that I donated to a children's charity. The occasional email from Dad about family events I wasn't invited to anyway, which felt like a power play more than information sharing. I didn't respond to any of it. Then, the summer after my junior year, everything changed. I was home in Boston. Yes, Boston was home now, not the house I'd grown up in, when I got an email from a lawyer. My maternal grandmother had passed away and I was named in her will. I barely remembered Grandma Ruth. She'd died in my previous life when I was 12, and my parents had kept me away from her, claiming she was difficult and mentally unstable. I'd seen her maybe 3 times in my childhood, always briefly, always supervised. The email requested my presence at the will reading. Out of curiosity more than anything, I went. The lawyer's office was downtown, elegant and expensive. I was the first to arrive. Then my parents walked in with Chelsea, and the air turned electric with tension. "Elena," Mom gasped, as if she hadn't expected me to actually be there. I nodded politely, like she was an acquaintance, not my mother. "You look well," Dad said stiffly. "I am, thank you." Chelsea just glared at me, and I was struck by how much older she looked than 21. Cosmetic procedures, probably. Mom had always obsessed about Chelsea maintaining her looks. The lawyer, a woman in her 60s named Miss Park, cleared her throat. "Now that everyone's here, let's begin." Grandma Ruth's will was surprisingly detailed. She left specific personal items to specific people, her jewelry to a cousin, her book collection to a friend. Then Miss Park got to the main assets. "To my daughter Caroline, I leave the sum of $1 for reasons she well knows." Mom's face went white. "To my son-in-law, Richard, I leave nothing, as he married into this family under false pretenses and showed his true nature repeatedly." Dad's jaw clenched. "To my granddaughter Chelsea, I leave the sum of $100, with the hope that she will use it to buy a personality." Chelsea sputtered. She can't." "To my granddaughter Elena, who I was kept from knowing properly, but whose strength and character were evident even in our brief meetings, I leave the remainder of my estate." The room went silent. Miss Park continued. "This includes her home in Newton, valued at approximately $2.3 million. Her investment portfolio, currently valued at $1.8 million. Her collection of rare books and art, valued at approximately $400,000, and various other assets totaling roughly $800,000. Elena also inherits her grandmother's personal papers and correspondence." I sat there, stunned. $5 million, a house. Freedom beyond anything I'd imagined. "This is insane!" Chelsea shrieked. "She barely knew her. We took care of her." "You never visited once in the last 10 years of her life," Miss Park said calmly, consulting her notes. "According to Ruth's journals, which will be given to Elena, your mother forbade you from having a relationship with her after Ruth confronted Caroline about her treatment of Elena." Mom stood abruptly. "This will be contested. Our lawyer will do nothing," Miss Park interrupted. "Ruth was of completely sound mind. The will has been reviewed by multiple legal experts, and she left very detailed documentation of her reasoning. She also recorded a video for Elena if you'd like to view it." "Yes," I heard myself say. "Yes, I would." Miss Park set up a laptop, and suddenly my grandmother was there on screen, recorded perhaps a year before her death. She looked frail but fierce, her eyes sharp. "Hello, Elena," she said. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone and you're finally free of them. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive. Your mother cut me off when you were young because I dared to suggest that perhaps treating you like an inconvenience and Chelsea like a princess wasn't healthy parenting." She leaned closer to the camera. "I tried to fight for visitation rights, but I was old and sick, and they had lawyers. So I did what I could. I made sure everything I had would go to you. Not because you need it. I have a feeling you'll make your own way just fine. but because they don't deserve it. And because I want you to know that someone saw you, valued you, loved you. Her eyes glistened. You are worthy of love, Elena. Real love, not conditional scraps. Don't ever forget that. And don't you dare feel guilty about this inheritance. You've earned it by surviving them with your soul intact. That's harder than they'll ever know. The video ended. I was crying, and I didn't care that my family saw. This is emotional manipulation, Mom shouted. She was senile. She was a retired superior court judge with a sharper mind than most people half her age, Miss Park said coldly. And if you continue to contest this, Elena is authorized to release certain documents that Ruth kept. Documents about your financial mismanagement, your treatment of Elena, and some particularly interesting details about Richard's business practices. Dad went very still. What documents? Ruth was very thorough in her documentation. She had investigators, receipts, recordings. She wanted to ensure Elena was protected. Miss Park turned to me. It's your choice whether to pursue any legal action, but you have quite a bit of ammunition if they harass you further. I looked at my parents, really looked at them. They seemed smaller somehow, diminished. Not the towering figures of authority from my childhood, not even the irritating obstacles from my teenage years, just people. Flawed, selfish people who'd made choices that hurt me and who were now facing consequences. I don't want to pursue anything, I said quietly. I just want them to leave me alone. Permanently. That can be arranged, Miss Park said. I can draft a cease and desist. No need, Dad interrupted, his voice tight. We understand. You've made your position abundantly clear, Elena. You've chosen money over family. The laugh that escaped me was harsh, almost foreign. I chose myself over abuse. There's a difference. We left separately. I went back to my summer sublet and spent the night reading Grandma Ruth's letters, years of attempted correspondence that my mother had apparently intercepted and hidden. Letters on every birthday, every holiday, every milestone. Letters that proved someone had been watching, had cared, had seen exactly what was happening. One letter, dated the day of my high school graduation, made me sob. My dearest Elena, today you graduate, and I know your parents probably found a way to make it about themselves or Chelsea. I know because that's what Caroline has always done. I'm so proud of you. You've become everything I hoped you would despite them, not because of them. That takes a strength they'll never understand. I love you, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there. But I'm doing what I can to make sure you'll be free of them. All my love, Grandma Ruth. She'd known, she'd understood, and she'd given me the ultimate weapon against them: financial independence and documented proof of their abuse. I spent the rest of that summer in my grandmother's house, going through her things. It was a beautiful old Victorian in Newton, filled with books and art and evidence of a life well lived. I found more letters, diaries spanning decades, and photographs of a mother-daughter relationship that had soured when Grandma Ruth had refused to enable Mom's narcissism. I also found letters Ruth had written but never sent to me. Letters about her own life, her mistakes, her regrets. She'd been a judge for 30 years, and her writing about justice, about the difference between legal and moral right, helped me understand my own choices better. One passage struck me particularly hard. People often mistake forgiveness for reconciliation. They're not the same thing. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself, to release the poison of anger. Reconciliation requires the other party to change, to earn trust back. You can forgive someone and still never let them hurt you again. In fact, that's often the healthiest choice. I realized I didn't hate my parents anymore. Hate required energy, engagement, passion. I felt nothing. Or not nothing exactly. I felt sad for the relationship we never had. I felt grateful I'd escaped. I felt determined to break the cycle and never treat anyone the way they'd treated me. But I didn't feel obligated to them anymore, not even obligated to my anger. When senior year started, I sold the Newton house. It was too big for me, and I didn't need it. I invested most of the money from Grandma Ruth's estate, keeping enough to finish MIT debt-free and to start my own company after graduation. I changed my name legally, dropped Ashford, and took my grandmother's maiden name, Blackwell. Elena Blackwell. It felt like becoming a new person, or maybe like finally becoming myself. The messages from my family stopped entirely after I changed my name. Maybe they finally got the hint. Maybe they were too embarrassed to keep trying. Maybe they'd found a new scapegoat. Or maybe Chelsea was finally demanding enough attention to keep them occupied. I didn't care which. They were part of my past, not my future. I graduated from MIT with dual degrees in computer science and electrical engineering, summa cum laude. I started a company focused on AI-driven educational software, specifically designed to help disadvantaged kids get access to high-quality tutoring. Mrs. Martinez was my first investor. She'd believed in me when I was a scared 18-year-old, and I wanted her to share in my success. The company took off faster than I'd dreamed. Within 3 years, we'd partnered with schools in 15 states. Within 5, we'd gone international. I was named to Forbes' 30 Under 30. I was interviewed on tech podcasts, invited to speak at conferences, featured in Wired magazine. My success was public, unavoidable. I knew my family had to have seen it. Sure enough, on my 30th birthday, 2 years before I died in my previous timeline, I got an email from richard.ashford@gmail.com, subject, proud of you. Elena, I saw your interview in Forbes. You've done remarkably well for yourself. I always knew you had potential. I think enough time has passed that we should talk. You're clearly successful now, and we'd like to be part of your life again. Chelsea is getting married next spring, and it would mean a lot to your mother if you came. Maybe you could even help with some of the costs. You know how expensive weddings are. We're family, Elena. That has to count for something. Dad. I read it 3 times, analyzing every sentence like it was code. The passive-aggressive, done well for yourself, implying I'd done it alone, with no acknowledgement of how they tried to hobble me. I always knew you had potential, rewriting history to make it seem like they'd supported me. The immediate pivot to asking for money. The manipulation of family as obligation, not love. In my previous life, I'd sent them money for Chelsea's wedding. $50,000 I couldn't afford, draining my savings, all because Mom had cried on the phone about how hard things were. This time, I wrote back, Richard, you're right that I've done well for myself. Emphasis on for myself. I think there's been a misunderstanding. We are not family. We share DNA, nothing more. Family shows up. Family cares. Family doesn't leave their child at a bus stop in the rain and then wonder why that child never answers their calls again. I'm not interested in a relationship with you, Caroline, or Chelsea. I'm not interested in contributing to Chelsea's wedding. I'm not interested in pretending the past didn't happen just because you've decided you want access to my success. I've built a good life, filled with people who actually care about me. There's no room in it for people who only see me as a resource to exploit. Please don't contact me again. Elena Blackwell. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something made me answer. How dare you? Mom's voice shrieked through the line. After everything we did for you. Like what? I interrupted, my voice deadly calm. Name one thing you did for me that wasn't a legal obligation. We raised you. We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head. The bare minimum required by law, that's your argument? That you didn't commit child neglect egregious enough to get arrested? You ungrateful. I'm hanging up now, Caroline. Lose this number. We made you who you are, she screamed. No, I said. You made me survive in spite of you. There's a difference. I blocked the number. Then I called my lawyer and had them send a formal cease and desist letter. If my parents contacted me again, they'd face legal consequences. They must have believed it because the calls stopped, but not the attempts at contact. 6 months later, Chelsea showed up at my office building. Security called me and I looked at the camera feed. She was older, harder looking, still beautiful, but in a brittle way. She was holding a baby. She says she's your sister and she needs to talk to you, the security guard said. Tell her I don't have a sister, I replied. But curiosity got the better of me. I went down to the lobby, staying behind the security desk. Chelsea's eyes lit up when she saw me. Elena, finally! I've been trying to reach you for months. What do you want? Is that any way to greet your sister, your niece? She held up the baby, a chubby infant who was actually pretty cute. I don't have a sister or a niece. What do you want? Her face crumpled in that practiced way I remembered, tears on demand. Please, Elena, I need help. The wedding fell through, and I'm a single mom now, and money is tight, and I thought maybe. No, you don't even know what I was going to ask. You were going to ask for money. The answer is no. How can you be so heartless? We're family. We're not. And even if we were, being related doesn't entitle you to my money. Mom said you'd be like this. She said success changed you, made you cold. I almost laughed. Success didn't change me, Chelsea. It freed me to stop pretending I didn't see how you all treated me. Success gave me the power to say no. I'm desperate, Elena. I have a child. Then get a job. I did. I worked 3 jobs at your age while putting myself through school. You can figure it out. That's different. You always were good at that stuff. I'm not like you. You're right, I said. I had to be resilient because no one was going to save me. You were coddled and enabled, but that's not my problem to fix. I turned to leave and she grabbed my arm, Sonda. Please, just a small loan. 20,000. I'll pay you back. I removed her hand from my arm. No. And if you or anyone else from that family comes here again, I'll get a restraining order. Goodbye, Chelsea. I walked back to the elevator and didn't look back, even as she called after me, her voice getting increasingly shrill. That night, I got a flood of messages on social media from people I'd never met, calling me cruel, heartless, selfish. Chelsea had apparently posted about our encounter, painting herself as a struggling single mother, rejected by her wealthy, cold-hearted sister. My PR team wanted to respond, to tell my side. I told them to ignore it. The truth was on my side, and anyone who knew me knew the kind of person I was. The rest didn't matter. The harassment died down after a week when Chelsea moved on to her next crisis, her next desperate attempt to monetize her life on Instagram. I moved on too. I kept building my company, kept investing in causes I believed in, kept surrounding myself with people who genuinely cared. 5 years after that encounter, I was 35 years old, 3 years older than I'd been when I died in my previous life. It felt significant, like I'd crossed a threshold into truly new territory. I was engaged to Sophia, yes, the same Sophia from MIT. We'd reconnected at a conference and realized we'd never really gotten over each other. My company had just been acquired for a sum that made me independently wealthy beyond any reasonable need. I'd started a foundation dedicated to supporting kids from abusive homes, offering scholarships, therapy, and legal assistance. I was happy. Genuinely, unreservedly happy in a way I'd never achieved in my previous life. And then my father died. I got the news from an old neighbor who somehow still had my email address. Heart attack, sudden. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. The funeral was in 3 days. I sat with the news for a long time, waiting to feel something. Grief, relief, anger, anything. But there was just a kind of quiet sadness. Not for who he'd been, but for who he could have been. For the relationship we never had and now never would. Sophia found me on the couch, staring at nothing. You okay? She asked, sitting beside me. My father died. She took my hand. Do you want to go to the funeral? Did I? I thought about it carefully. Not the automatic, I should, or what will people think, but what I actually wanted. No, I said finally. I mourned that relationship a long time ago. Going now would just be performance. Okay, Sophia said simply. No judgment, no pushing. Just acceptance. But I did send flowers. Anonymous ones. No card. It felt right somehow, an acknowledgement of loss without false reconciliation. Mom sent me a long email afterward, full of venom about my absence and how I disrespected your father's memory. I read it once and deleted it. Her anger couldn't touch me anymore. 2 years later, I got a call from a hospital. Mom had listed me as an emergency contact and she'd had a stroke. She was asking for me. Will she recover? I asked the nurse. It's hard to say. She's stable but weak. She's very insistent about seeing you. I thought about it. In my previous life, this was when I'd donated my kidney. This was when I'd bankrupted myself for a woman who'd never loved me. Tell her I hope she recovers, I said. But I won't be visiting. She's your mother, biologically, I agreed, but that's where our relationship begins and ends. She has another daughter. Call her. I hung up and went back to planning my wedding. Mom survived the stroke, but was diminished from what I heard through the grapevine. Chelsea had to move back home to take care of her. I heard they fought constantly, that Chelsea resented the burden, that Mom was bitter and angry. I felt a distant pity for them both, trapped in a toxic cycle of their own making. But it wasn't my responsibility to fix. It never had been. My wedding was perfect, small, intimate, just the people who actually mattered. Mrs. Martinez walked me down the aisle crying happy tears. Marcus was my man of honor, my company's COO, a brilliant woman named Jasmine who'd become one of my closest friends, gave a toast about chosen family. Not one person from my biological family was present, and their absence made the day lighter, freer, more joyful. Sophia and I honeymooned in Japan, somewhere I'd always wanted to go but never could afford in my previous life. We ate incredible food, soaked in hot springs, explored ancient temples. One night in Kyoto, sitting in a traditional garden at sunset, Sophia asked me, "Do you ever regret cutting them off?" I thought about it honestly. "No," I said. "I regret that I had to. I regret that they couldn't be the parents I needed. But cutting them off was the best decision I ever made. It was choosing myself, my health, my future, and it led me here to you, to this life. I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over." She kissed me, and the garden lanterns flickered on as night fell, and I felt profoundly grateful for my second chance. I'm 43 now, successful beyond measure by any external standard. My foundation has helped thousands of kids escape abusive situations. My marriage is strong and full of laughter. I have a daughter through surrogacy, Ruthie, named after my grandmother, and I'm determined to give her everything I never had: presence, attention, unconditional love. Sometimes people ask me if I miss my family. The answer is complicated. I miss the idea of them, the parents I wish I'd had. But the reality of them? No. I don't miss walking on eggshells. I don't miss being forgotten and dismissed. I don't miss the constant feeling of not being enough. I broke the cycle, and that's worth more than any relationship with people who hurt me could ever be. Last week, I got a letter, real mail, forwarded through my lawyer. It was from Chelsea. "Elena," it began, "I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know I was terrible to you growing up. I'm writing because Mom is dying, and she wants to see you one last time. She says she has things to say. I don't know if you'll come, but I promised I'd ask. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I see it now, how badly we treated you. I'm in therapy, trying to be better for my daughter. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that you were right about everything, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I read the letter twice. It seemed sincere, or as sincere as Chelsea had ever been. Sophia found me in my office. "What's that?" "My mother is dying. Chelsea wants me to visit." "Do you want to?" I considered it. Really, genuinely considered it. In my previous life, I would have gone running, desperate for any crumb of acknowledgement or love. In this life, I knew better. "No," I said. If she wanted to apologize, she had 25 years to do it. I'm not going to sit by her deathbed and give her absolution just so she can die feeling better about herself. That's not my job. "Are you sure?" Sophia asked gently. "I'll support whatever you choose." I'm sure she doesn't deserve my forgiveness, and more importantly, I don't need to give it. I've moved on. She's just someone I used to know. I wrote back to Chelsea, "Thank you for the apology. I hope you do better with your daughter than our mother did with us. But I won't be visiting. I've built a life that doesn't include her, and I'm at peace with that. I wish you well in your therapy and your journey. But my chapter with that family closed the day they left me at the bus stop in the rain." I sent it and felt nothing but relief. My mother died 2 weeks later. I didn't attend the funeral. I sent flowers again, the same as I had for my father. White lilies with no card. Chelsea sent me a text. She asked for you at the end, said she was sorry. I didn't respond. Those words, offered at the very end, cost her nothing. They didn't undo decades of neglect and cruelty. They didn't heal the child I'd been, desperate for her love. They were just words, empty and far too late. I deleted the text and went to pick up Ruthie from school. She ran into my arms, chattering about her day, her science project, the friends she'd made at recess. I listened to every word, present and engaged, and felt a fierce protectiveness wash over me. This child would never know what it felt like to be forgotten. She would never stand in the rain, watching her parents drive away. She would never have to choose herself over family because her family would choose her every single time. That night, tucking Ruthie into bed, she asked me, "Mama, did you have a grandma when you were little?" "I did," I said. "Her name was Ruth, and she was wonderful. You're named after her." "Did she read you stories?" "She wanted to," I said honestly. "But we didn't get to spend much time together. But she loved me very much, and she made sure I'd be okay. She's one of the reasons you and I are here together now." I wish I could have met her. "Me too, sweetheart, but she's part of us. We carry the people who love us with us, always." Ruthie thought about that, then hugged me tight. "I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby, always." After she fell asleep, I stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe, feeling the weight and wonder of being trusted with someone's whole heart. I thought about my second chance, about the choice I'd made at 18 to walk away from people who hurt me. It had been the hardest and best decision of my life. It had led me here, to this moment, to this child, to this full and beautiful life. They'd left me at a bus stop in the rain, expecting me to come running back, to forgive, to forget, to diminish myself for their comfort. Instead, I'd walked away. I'd built an empire. I'd created a family that actually functioned on love instead of obligation. I'd broken the cycle, and I'd never answered their calls again. That wasn't cruelty. That was survival. That was self-love. That was the bravest thing I'd ever done. Standing in my daughter's room, in the home I'd built, surrounded by the life I'd chosen, I finally felt it. The complete, unshakable peace of knowing I'd made the right choice. I wasn't their victim anymore. I wasn't even their daughter, not really. I was just Elena Blackwell, survivor, entrepreneur, wife, mother, and the author of my own story. And that story, unlike the one I'd been born into, had a happy ending.